Have you ever built a productivity system that worked perfectly for about 3 days, and then the second you got tired or overwhelmed, the whole thing just fell apart? Oh, welcome to my world. So this is why this happens. You built it when you were at your best. So you felt really great and you built it. And when you had energy, motivation, clarity, and you expected it to work when you were at your worst. So I did this a bit the other day. I had a full day to myself and I built this entire system in ClickUp. Voice tasks, time tracking, calendar integration, the works. And I was really excited about it. And then I thought, will this actually help me on a day when I can barely think straight? Because that is the real test of any system that you build. Not does it work when I'm motivated, but does it work when I'm depleted or when I just can't be bothered? So in this video, I'm going to show you why we keep building systems for our best days and how ADHD and burnout makes that worse, and how to actually design systems that function when you need them most. So what happens is we have peaks and troughs in our energy. And we have high energy days, and high energy days, you feel like you could achieve anything and you feel so amazing and you're kind of buzzing. So you have all this energy, all this motivation, all this clarity. So you feel like you could do almost anything. And you don't really, in those days, actually need a system, but you can create a system. And what happens is we create systems when we feel like that. And what happens is when we don't have the energy and the motivation and the clarity, we look at our system and we think, what am I supposed to do with this? So what we want to do is thinking about how we can have a system in place for when we know we're not going to have much energy or much motivation. So it can help us through that time rather than just support us when we feel great anyway. So we need to kind of think about how we can design our systems for our worst possible state rather than our best. And having an ADHD brain, I fall into this very easily because high energy phases feel like this is it. I figured it out. I finally cracked productivity, right? So I'm on that kind of like a buzz and that high, and I'm like, yeah, I've got it. And that's kind of like really dangerous. So I can build really elaborate systems because I'm hyper focused and it feels really good and I know exactly what I'm doing and I've worked it all out. But then I'll hit the low energy bit and the system is too complex to use and I abandon it, or it just doesn't fit with keeping the motivation up. So the other day when I was designing in ClickUp, I kind of went down a bit of a rabbit hole trying to figure something out, and I was trying to figure out how to speak my tasks out to ClickUp and get them to just put it into my task list. And I was going online and I was Googling and going on YouTube and watching different videos, and I was sat there trying to do something with Zapier. Don't even ask me why. And it wasn't working in any way, shape or form. And then I discovered that ClickUp actually had AI, so I could just do it directly on ClickUp. Anyway, that's a whole other story. So I was spending ages trying to figure this out. And what I came up with in the end was quite a simple solution, but I was making it really complicated. And that's kind of like the ADHD brain. If I hadn't stopped and thought, how can I make this more simple? I would have ended up with a really complicated, do something over here, get it to go into Zapier, get it to go over there, then double check it and then play with this. And it would take, I just wouldn't have done it. So I have actually made it easier. So the real test of your system, any system that you're creating, okay, so we all have different productivity systems that work for us. And it's not like if I'm going to tell you a system and it's going to work for everybody, because it won't, because we all have our own way of looking at productivity and the own way of processing what makes us motivated to do our tasks. So when we create our system, whatever it is, if it requires things like decision making or motivation or energy to use it, it's not a system, it's a performance. Okay, so it needs to be something very, very easy that actually helps us move forward in our day. So what it needs to be is it needs to be simpler than doing nothing. So, for me, for years, and it does work, I write a list on a bit of paper. Right? It's the easiest system for me to stay motivated when I can cross it off. I am finding that with ClickUp, I'm kind of like, I can talk it out, get my list, and I can click it off. So that's quite nice. I'm not sure I will stick to it, but I might just end up going back to bits of paper. I get fed up with bits of paper everywhere because I forget to throw them away and end up with loads of bits of paper all over my house. So I'm looking for a simpler solution, and I'm trying to keep it as easy as possible. And any system you create should remove friction and not add it. And I think that's the problem with so many systems you see out there, productivity things. And I can't speak from a neurotypical brain. I can only speak from an ADHD brain. I find they add noise to my life and I ignore them. So, you know, lots of things that people say will set timers or reminders in your calendar. Reminders in my calendar are totally pointless. Reminders in my calendar will come up and I will just go, oh, that's nice. And I will swipe it away and I will ignore it. It doesn't even register on my radar. So there are different ways I have to work around it myself in order to work the productivity in my brain. And that's kind of where we start to understand our own brains, what works for us and what doesn't work for us. So for me, that whole idea of voice tasks, because I find it very easy to talk through what I need to do and then being able to convert that into a task list. And I can just take that task list and I can actually voice it out. I can just get that task list directly into my ClickUp where it's assigned to me, it's on my to-do list, it's got a date assigned to it because I can talk out when I want it due by as well. And that would automatically be assigned to it. So I can then have that there. I've now got something that is even easier than writing a list and will save me time. That's what I needed. Okay, because then I will do it. Other things, like that help with planning is having things scheduled. So housework tasks, making them scheduled as part of your to-do list every day. So you have particular things that you do every day, and then when you're doing your to-do list, schedule that in. Or for meals, pre-planning. So you know what you're going to make each day. Because if I don't know what I'm going to make, which I don't know I'm going to have later today, I haven't planned it, I'll get to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I think I don't know what I'm going to eat today. And then I think, I don't know. And then it's like a really big issue because I don't know what I'm going to eat because now I don't have the energy to cook and I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I might get something really rubbish. And these are the things to become aware of in your brain. What systems can you put in place that make your life easier? If I don't have a system in place about what I'm going to eat, cooking and eating becomes a huge decision that my brain struggles to make. So I get stuck in an ADHD freeze mode and I procrastinate about eating until I get so hungry I eat something really unhealthy. Whereas if I have stuff, I love it when I batch cook and I have stuff in the fridge and I can just warm it up because then I know that I've got something and I don't have to think about it. And it's all of these little things. So when I'm creating my to-do list, if I can just speak it out, I prefer to speak than write because I'm very quick at speaking. I'm very slow at writing. I don't know why. I'm left-handed, which makes me slow at writing with my hand, and typing I'm not very good at. So all those things slow me down. Speaking, very good at. That's an ADHD skill that I got that I'm very, very good at. And so that saves me a lot of time and effort. So thinking about those things where when you're creating, how do I put more structure into my life? Think, okay, well, what are the steps that I need to take that mean that I don't have to think on a day-to-day basis? And that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to eliminate, for me anyway, I'm trying to eliminate thinking, because the more thinking that has to go into a whole process, the harder it is for me to do that process, because I have to then motivate myself to think about it, and then from the thinking to the doing. Whereas if it's very simple, straightforward, where you follow this step and then you do this and then you follow that step, then I know what I'm doing. And if I've planned out, this is what you're eating today, tomorrow, this day and that day, then I know, okay, this is what I've got to do on all of those days. That's how I can plan it out. And it makes life much easier. So it's just that planning and getting in kind of like organized. So the idea is with our systems that we can build them on good days, because that's when we've got the energy to think about it, to plan it, to put it together, but test it on bad days. Test it out. Does this really work? So when we're creating that system, we create it in the mindset of like, okay, well, this is an idea and I'm going to test and I'm going to work on it. I'm going to play with it and see how it goes. And then if it works, then and only then will I implement it as a proper system if it works on my bad day. And if it doesn't work, then you can go back and simplify it and tweak it and take things out that you don't need and just make it easier to actually use. And one of the ways we do this is about how we work to our own capacity, because you're not pretending that you will always have high energy and high capacity. You're planning for your full energy cycle, and nobody lives at high energy all the time. And if they do, I'd love to meet that person, right? I'd love to meet that person that's at high energy all the time. It's just like we have ebbs and flows of energy, and it's kind of like accepting that and living that and absorbing it. And I think one of the things when we look at most productivity things, when they teach you productivity and you learn about personal development, it's always about trying to be your best all the time. And I think actually that creates a culture of failure, because we are going to wake up and have not slept that well. And you might even not have been less hours, but you might not have had as deep and restful sleep. So you feel tired, but you still want to do stuff, but you don't want to do as much. So you want a system that supports you when you feel like that, or just general ebbs and flows of energy. And I think if we try and focus on doing the same thing every day, having the same input for it, having the same energy, having something that's really structured and requires a lot of effort, then actually we're setting ourselves up to fail. So what I focus on is actually, let's build a life around who we really are, right? Not who the ideal person is, because that ideal person doesn't actually exist. It's a bit like one of those myths that we come up with in the best case scenario. Well, nobody lives in the best case scenario, so we actually very rarely are in our best case scenario. So we go up and down, up and down, up and down, and we create a life where we accept that. We accept that there will be peaks and troughs in energy. We accept that there will be days when we can do less and days when we can do more. And we plan our lives and our structure around that, rather than trying to build a structure and then force our lives to fit it. Because that's when we burn out. That's when we feel overwhelmed. And that's when we go into procrastination and freeze mode, because we are pushing ourselves beyond our limits day after day after day. And there's only so long you can maintain that for before you crash. Even if you look at, say, I'm going on a bit long, sorry. Even if you look at high performing athletes, so that they, Olympic medalists and stuff, they will still have rest days factored in. They don't just do the same work every single day, because they would get an injury, because no one can maintain the same level of work every single day and consistently and keep doing it over and over and over again. And so come back to that and actually just look at that and think, okay, how can I accept that and then build for my capacity and not the ideal? We nobody lives the ideal, okay? So hopefully this has resonated with you and you've enjoyed it. And if you have, remember to like and subscribe. And if you want to go deeper into sustainable productivity and capacity-based living, and actually building a life that works for your ADHD brain instead of against it, I've got a free community on School called the Sacred Reset. And we work through this stuff together and lots of different things. I put the link in the description. Plus as well, if you want it, drop a comment and I will send you a resource for a systems audit planner. So you can audit any systems that you put in. You can just kind of like assess them and make sure they work for you. And also tell me in the comments, what's a system you built on a good day that completely fell apart on a bad day? Because I want to know I'm not the only one that does this. So the link for the group is in the comments, and I'll hopefully see you on the inside.